The Toronto Blue Jays just made a decision about Eric Lauer that has fans absolutely stunned, and what's happening right now reveals everything you need to know about how championship organizations actually operate versus how casual fans think they should operate. While everyone is debating whether the Blue Jays should immediately extend Lauer after his incredible 2025 season and clutch World Series performance, General Manager Ross Atkins is executing a masterclass in championship roster construction that separates elite organizations from pretenders. Sportsnet's Nick Ashbourne reported that Lauer won't get extended after 2026. And here's the part that's going to blow your mind. That's actually the most intelligent move Toronto could possibly make. This isn't about being cheap or failing to reward performance. This is about strategic championship architecture that maximizes roster flexibility while building sustainable contention for years, rather than making emotional decisions that feel good in the moment, but compromise long-term success. If you want to understand how elite front offices actually think, how they balance competing priorities, and why the Blue Jays' approach to Lauer is actually a sign of organizational intelligence rather than failure, you need to hear every detail of this analysis, because it's going to completely change how you evaluate roster construction and front office decision-making. Let's start with Eric Lauer's absolutely incredible 2025 resurrection story, because it's the kind of Hollywood script that makes fans fall in love with baseball. The 30-year-old southpaw signed a minor league deal last December after spending time pitching in Korea, essentially trying to salvage a career that had been completely derailed by a brutal 2023 season with Milwaukee, where he posted a 6.56 ERA and lost his spot in the major league rotation. When Toronto called him up on April 30th, expectations were modest at best. They were hoping for a serviceable depth arm who could eat innings and provide organizational flexibility. What they got instead exceeded every conceivable expectation by a massive margin. Lauer proceeded to post 9 wins against just 2 losses, with a spectacular 3.18 ERA across 104.2 innings spanning 28 appearances, including 15 starts. His 1.11 whip was outstanding, showcasing the kind of efficiency and control that makes pitchers extremely valuable. He struck out 102 batters while walking only 24, giving him an elite 2.07 walks per 9 innings rate that demonstrated the pinpoint control and command that made him indispensable to manager John Schneider's arsenal. But the raw numbers alone don't fully capture Lauer's true value to the Blue Jays in 2025. He became Schneider's ultimate weapon, the versatile lefty who could start games, provide bulk relief out of the bullpen, or handle high-leverage situations with equal effectiveness. That versatility is incredibly rare and valuable in modern baseball. Most pitchers are either starters or relievers, and they struggle when asked to operate outside their defined role. Lauer proved he could do it all, and do it all at a high level. When the Blue Jays needed him to make a spot start because of injury or scheduling, he delivered quality innings. When they needed multiple innings out of the bullpen to bridge from starter to closer, he provided them. When they needed a lefty specialist to get a crucial out in a tight game, he came through. That kind of positional flexibility is championship-level valuable because it gives managers options and allows them to optimize matchups throughout a game and across a long season. The ultimate validation of Lauer's value came during the World Series run, when the Blue Jays reached the Fall Classic and battled the Dodgers in what became a heartbreaking 7-game series loss. Lauer delivered one of the most clutch performances of the entire October. In the epic 18-inning marathon that was Game 3, Lauer threw 4.2 scoreless innings of absolutely crucial relief. He struck out 2 batters, worked around 3 intentional walks, and kept the Blue Jays in a game that could have easily spiraled out of control. That performance proved exactly why Toronto took a chance on him and validated the organizational belief that there was still elite talent hidden beneath the struggles of recent years. For just $2.2 million in 2025, Lauer became arguably the organization's best value acquisition of the entire season. You're talking about a pitcher who provided 104 quality innings with a 3.18 ERA for essentially the league minimum. That's the kind of return on investment that makes front offices look brilliant and that provides the financial flexibility to spend money elsewhere on the roster. This is the context that makes the extension question so fascinating and that reveals the strategic thinking behind the Blue Jays' decision not to extend Lauer immediately. Here's the billion-dollar question that every Blue Jays fan is asking right now. Why wouldn't the Blue Jays immediately lock down this kind of production long-term? If Lauer was this good in 2025 and came through so clutch in the World Series, why not extend him now and secure that value for multiple years? The answer is because championship organizations separate emotion from strategy. And Ross Atkins just demonstrated exactly why he's building something truly special in Toronto. This decision reveals organizational intelligence and long-term thinking that goes far beyond surface-level reactions. Nick Ashbourne's Newsweek analysis cuts right to the strategic heart of this decision. He noted that Lauer exceeded all reasonable expectations by a significant margin in 2025, but that some skepticism is warranted considering it was his first strong MLB campaign since 2022. The key phrase there is buying high on a player. When a player has a career year that significantly outperforms his established track record, there's always risk in immediately committing long-term money based on that outlier performance. What if 2025 was the peak and regression comes in 2026? What if the role changes and Lauer's effectiveness diminishes? These aren't disrespectful questions. These are the strategic considerations that separate good front offices from great ones. Ashbourne specifically noted that buying high on a player who's slated for a long relief role seems like a dicey bit of business. That's the crucial insight. With the Blue Jays' rotation as currently constructed, Lauer's role in 2026 is likely to shift from the starter swingman role he had in 2025 to more of a pure bullpen piece. And while he proved he can excel in that role, the question becomes whether you want to commit multi-year guaranteed money to a 31-year-old reliever based on one excellent season. The Blue Jays' decision is that the answer is no, and that's actually smart organizational thinking rather than disrespect or cheapness. The Blue Jays tendered Lauer a contract for 2026 at a projected $4.4 million through arbitration, essentially doubling his 2025 salary while maintaining cost control and roster flexibility. That's smart business that rewards his excellent performance with a significant raise while not committing to the kind of multi-year deal that could become problematic if his role diminishes or his performance regresses. But here's where the real championship architecture reveals itself, and where you start to understand the broader strategic context for this decision. Toronto's rotation landscape transformed completely this offseason with the historic 7-year, $210 million signing of Dylan Cease, the largest free agent contract in franchise history. Think about the rotation firepower the Blue Jays will have heading into 2026 and the implications for how roles and innings get distributed. You have Kevin Gausman, one of baseball's most underrated aces, who's posted a 17-9 record with elite peripherals since joining Toronto. You have Shane Bieber, the former Cy Young winner, who exercised his $16 million player option after showing flashes of his dominant form following Tommy John surgery. You have Alek Manoah potentially returning to form after his own injury struggles. You have Jose Berrios, the workhorse who gives you 180-plus innings every season. And now you add Dylan Cease, who's struck out over 200 batters multiple times and brings absolutely elite swing-and-miss stuff to the rotation. That's not just a good rotation. That's a championship-caliber rotation designed for sustained October success. When you add in pitchers like Bowden Francis and other depth arms, plus the addition of KBO MVP Cody Ponce on a 3-year, $30 million deal after he dominated Korea with a 17-1 record and 252 strikeouts, the depth is absolutely staggering. This is the kind of pitching infrastructure that allows you to compete for championships year after year because you can absorb injuries, manage workloads, and optimize matchups throughout the season and into October. Here's where Ross Atkins' genius becomes undeniable and where the Lauer decision fits into a broader strategic framework. Both Gaussman and Bieber will hit free agency after 2026. Berrios has an opt-out clause after 2026. The current championship window has a definitive timeline with some significant decisions coming next offseason. But by securing Cease through 2032 with that massive contract, Toronto guaranteed long-term rotation stability regardless of what happens with their veteran starters. If Gaussman or Bieber leave in free agency, or if Berrios opts out, the Blue Jays still have a true ace locked in for the next 7 years. That's not reactive roster management where you're constantly scrambling to replace departed stars. That's proactive dynasty building where you're thinking 3 or 4 years ahead and creating sustainable infrastructure. For Lauer specifically, waiting on an extension isn't disrespectful. It's strategic. His projected $4.4 million arbitration salary for 2026 represents exceptional value for a proven swingman who can handle multiple roles. The Blue Jays maintain complete flexibility to evaluate how he fits into the new rotation hierarchy throughout the 2026 season. If he continues delivering high-leverage excellence and proves that 2025 wasn't a fluke, then he'll hit free agency after 2026 with maximum leverage, fresh postseason heroics on his resume, and the ability to command a significant multi-year deal either from Toronto or another team. If his role diminishes behind that stacked rotation and his performance regresses toward his career norms, then the Blue Jays avoided committing long-term money to a player whose peak may have been a single season. Compare this measured approach to how Toronto handled Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s absolutely massive 14-year, $500 million extension. Vlad is a generational cornerstone talent, a franchise player who deserved every dollar of that record-setting investment. Lauer is an exceptional role player who earned every dollar of his significant raise from $2.2 million to $4.4 million. Both players are critical to winning championships, but they warrant fundamentally different contract strategies based on their age, track record, role, and ceiling. Elite organizations recognize these distinctions and don't treat every good performer the same way regardless of context. What makes this decision even more brilliant from a roster construction standpoint is the financial architecture and flexibility it preserves. With potential extensions for players like Gaussman or Bieber potentially coming depending on their 2026 performance, plus the reality that Cease's $30 million average annual value pushes the payroll significantly higher, the Blue Jays are preserving flexibility to strike when championship opportunities demand it. They're not penny pinching or being cheap. They're building sustainable contention that doesn't mortgage tomorrow for emotional decisions today that might feel good, but compromise long-term competitiveness. Think about what happens if the Blue Jays extended Lauer now to, say, a 3-year, $24 million deal, which would be reasonable market value for his 2025 performance. That's committing $8 million per year through age 33 to a pitcher who might be relegated to a pure bullpen role behind the rotation they've assembled. If his performance dips or his role diminishes, that contract becomes an albatross that limits flexibility. But if they wait, pay him $4.4 million in 2026, and then reassess based on another full season of data, they can make a much more informed decision about whether long-term investment makes sense. That's smart organizational thinking that maximizes optionality. For Lauer personally, this approach might actually work in his favor depending on how 2026 plays out. Another season of elite swingman production sets him up for a career-defining free agency at age 31. Teams will covet a lefty with his versatility, postseason pedigree, and proven ability to handle multiple roles effectively. He could potentially command a larger deal on the open market after 2026 than he would get in an extension right now. Or if he wants the security and prefers to stay in Toronto, he can negotiate an extension during the 2026 season once both sides have more information about fit and role. The point is that waiting doesn't close doors. It actually opens more options for both player and team. The broader strategic lesson here is about how championship organizations actually think versus how fans emotionally react to situations. Fans see a player perform well and want immediate extension as a reward and to lock in that production. Organizations see the same performance and ask deeper questions. Is this sustainable? How does the role change with roster additions? What's the financial opportunity cost? What flexibility do we lose with a multi-year commitment? What information will another season provide that we don't have now? These aren't cynical or disrespectful questions. These are the strategic considerations that allow teams to build sustainable contenders rather than one-year wonders. The Blue Jays aren't disrespecting Eric Lauer by not extending him immediately. They're respecting the complexity of roster construction, the reality of financial constraints even for big market teams, and the importance of preserving flexibility in an uncertain future. They rewarded his excellent 2025 season with a 100% raise through arbitration. They expressed confidence in his ability to contribute in 2026. But they also recognize that committing multi-year money right now based on one excellent season carries risks that might not be worth taking given the broader roster context. What does this mean for Blue Jays fans who want to see their team compete for championships year after year? It means your front office is executing championship-caliber roster construction. They secured long-term stability with the Cease signing. They locked up their generational cornerstone in Guerrero. They're maximizing value with controlled contracts like Lauer's arbitration year. They're building depth that can sustain success through inevitable injuries and performance regression. This is exactly how dynasties are built, not with emotional extensions that feel good in the moment, but with strategic patience and long-term thinking that keeps the championship window open for as long as possible.